and quantity school. So if you're looking at the first use case of data visualization or data exploration, now the initial phase of your analysis, before you start doing any other analysis, you want to know, get a good feel of your data. You want to know what this data entails, and what's the distribution, what are the values inside, are there outliers? All these are features of the data set you want to know. And data exploration, also known as exploratory data analysis, this is where you get a hand feel of your data set. So we'll be using visuals to do this. There are different types of techniques in data exploration. We have multivariate, graphical, we have let me just write them down here somewhere. We have uni. Have the multivariate. And we also have univariate, non-graphical. Okay, let me add graphical to this. We have univariate graphical EDA, exploratory data analysis. We have multivariate graphical exploratory data analysis. We also have univariate non-graphical and multivariate non-graphical, but we are not going to be discussing those tools. They are mainly statistical approach to exploratory data analysis. These two right here, univariate graphical method and multivariate graphical method, that's what we'll be discussing. So in univariate graphical EDA, we are looking at a single variable, like the name implies, univariate. We'll be looking at a single variable. When we are talking about the variable here, we are looking at just a single column. You want to know the attributes of this particular column. It can be something as simple as the mean. It can be the standard deviation of that column, depending on the kind of analysis you want to do. You can also be interested in saying the distribution of that column, how the data in that column is distributed. I think this helps us with choosing the kind of statistical tests we'll be using, or even modeling. When it comes to modeling, knowing the distribution of your data sets will also guide you when it comes to modeling. So these and many more are what we'll be discussing. Now let's dive into it mainly. For this first column, quantity sold. These are things we'll be doing. Assess the data distribution. And we can do this using a histogram chart. We can use a box plot to assess all of this. Let's learn how to use a histogram to do this. Now, this is just a single variable. We are looking at just quantity sold. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. So some of the participants are asking if they can have the data set shared. So I think they want to be practicing alongside, like, as your team. So you can just share it to them in the chat box.
Let me just a second. I'll stop sharing to.
Okay.
Can you give me a quick guide on how to share files on here?
Okay, yeah, I think for you to share files, it has to either be in link format. You can share it with me on WhatsApp if you have
Okay.
your WhatsApp on your laptop. So I'll just share it with them. So that doesn't distract you.
Okay, check your WhatsApp. Confirm if you can see my screen. Okay.
I can see your screen.
All right. So now we'll be looking at just a single variable, that's the quantity sold. We can use a histogram chart to explore this effectively. So what you do, just highlight this entire column, go to your insert tab. There are different chart options here that you can select from. Now I'll be selecting the histogram. The first question you should have in mind is, this visual I'm trying to bring up now, why am I bringing this up? Why am I visualizing this? Why am I using a histogram chart for this? Remember what I said earlier, we want to know the shape of the distribution. Is it normally distributed, or is it a bimodal? So for a chart like this, the number of bins you have also affects the shape of your distribution. Bins are simply the intervals, how you are grouping your data. Let's say you have from 1 to 100, you might want to split into 5 by 20. So each of those splitting will be a particular bin. Now check here, they are evenly distributed. You can see the bins, the interval between this, you can already identify it. Now, when you're looking at this chart, you can see there is a particular point that is outside the rest. This is an outlier.
Hi, Eric.
So
I'm so sorry to disturb you again. I'm very, very, very sorry. I've not received the file yet. So you could just help me
it'll be
check. I'm so
loading.
sorry.
Okay, it's loading. My network is a bit bad. It's loading. Should see
Oh,
it
all right.
anytime.
Okay, no problem. Don't worry, you guys will get it. I'll share it as soon as I get it. All right, thank you, sir. You can go ahead. I apologize for
Okay,
that.
just give me let me resend it again.
Okay.
Let's stop. Okay.
Yeah, I got it now. I have it now. Thank you.
Now back to the chart. I would want to increase the number of bins so that we'll look at it at a more granular level. So just go to shape formatting, and increase the bin size. I want to have up to 10 bins. So we should be looking at click on the bin, and we can see the bin width here, number of bins rather. So change the number of bins from 7, it's 7 here. We'll put it at 10. I think this will help us see it better. I'm just going to copy this chart to a new page so it doesn't affect our data here. So looking at a histogram chart like this, how do you interpret this? This is a typical analytical visual. You can see the shape of this. If you are to draw a curve across here, you see this tail here is skewed to the left. There's a longer tail here compared to this other side. Now, this is simply telling you that there are more days with higher sales compared to days with lower sales. So if you have to model this, you can use a Poisson or a negative binomial regression to model this, and you get a perfect result for this. You can also add your data label to see the frequency of each of these. So looking at this now, the days where they sold between 101 to 180, just 2 days. Between 180 to 259, 4 days. You also have these other ones. You can see the distribution already. Now we can add a title to this, so that whoever is looking at this chart will have an idea what this chart is trying to tell us. Call it distribution of this is sales, quantity sold. So from here, you can proceed with more advanced analysis, now having an idea of how your data set is being distributed. This is exploratory data analysis. We've also been able to spot out an outlier here. How you handle your outlier is it's quite tricky handling outliers. There are some cases where these outliers might be as a result of an error in data entry. In those kind of cases, if you are sure it's an error, you want to get rid of it. And then if sometimes outliers are also correct values, but if they are too high or they are too many, they can affect the shape of your model. They can affect the distribution. So you also want to check that or use a more advanced model that can tune out the noise coming from outliers. Now let's look at multivariate graphical method of exploratory data analysis. In multivariate method, we are now looking at more than one variable. So you want to compare two variables. That's multivariables. So to do that, a good example is we'll be looking at how the daily temperature affects the quantity sold. If there's a relationship between the temperature for each day and the quantity sold. A scatter plot can easily do this for us. If you're using just statistics, correlation will handle this for us. That's for multivariate non-graphical method. But since we are interested in the visualization, we want to use graphs. So I'm going to highlight these two cells, these two columns rather. We'll go to insert and make use of a scatter. We'll make use of a scatter plot. Observe with me, you can see there is a kind of linear relationship. Here we have the temperature on this axis, the daily temperature on this axis, and we have the quantity sold on this axis. As the temperature is increasing, we can see quantity sold is also increasing. There might be other factors affecting the quantity sold, but from our visuals here, we can see there's a correlation between quantity sold and daily temperature. I always advise in class that correlation does not equate causation. You just have to investigate further to see if there's this relationship is actually substantial. You can go ahead and conclude on this that yes, the temperature is affecting this. So from this, if you are certain that yes, the temperature has an influence on the number of quantity they will be sold, you can predict the quantity you can sell for a particular temperature using the simple linear equation. Okay, let's turn on chart. The line should be a trend line. Okay, you can see the trend line here, not that visible. I'll take this to a new. Expand this. Okay, so here we are checking the relationship between two variables. Between temperature being the independent variable and quantity sold being the dependent.
I'm sorry, Eric. Yeah, there's like a question for you concerning what you just did. So somebody's asking,
Okay.
how do you add the regression line?
Okay,
Yes.
if you
How do you
click
add
on
the line?
if you click on the chart, there is a plus icon here. You can see the plus icon by the side. And check trend line. You can see the trend line here. Just check it and it will be added. There are different kind of lines you can add, the other options. You can see the linear, you can see exponential, linear forecast, and the rest. So I'm just going with the linear line here. That's how I added it. Okay, so still on this visualization, colors play a lot of role when it comes to visualization. This outlier, I can decide to highlight it. If I'm really interested, my aim is to spot out this outlier. I can use color to differentiate it from the rest so that whoever is looking at this chart, the first thing you'll notice is the one that's standing outside. Use solid line. No, not that. I'll use a red color. Let's see. Now, here we can see this outlier. Okay, let's add a data label to this. To edit your chart, you can simply click on the individual data points and it's easily editable. So I'm going to add data label to just this one. turn on the data label. So anybody looking at this chart now, although it's quite small, you can make it bigger, but your attention is immediately drawn to this. So let's say this was a data entry error, and you want to show it to your IT team that this particular data is an error. The moment you visualize this the way it is, attention is being drawn to this immediately. Or if there's a particular day where your sales fall way below your average and you want to highlight it for everybody to see, you want to draw attention to it, you can use colors and some other annotations to draw attention to that. This is how you visualize effectively. I really want us to design a dashboard, so I'm going to run through this. So we've been able to spot out like, okay, we've done the first one. We've used the histogram chart to assess the data distribution. We also use it to spot outliers. And I will also use the scatter plot to check relationship between two variables. Now, in data exploration, you can also check for missing values. I would have done this with a density chart, but it's not native to Excel. So doing it will take us a lot of time. Or also a matrix chart, but these are not native to Excel. So I'm just going to skip that particular one, checking for missing values. So let's play around a little with the data. Let me just change something. Say I go back here and I increase one of these figures to say 35. 35 is way small. So let's see what happens. You can see it out here. It's standing outside your distribution. So this automatically is an outlier. This is how you can use scatter plots to spot out outliers. There are other charts you can also make use of, like I think box plots can spot your outliers for you. Let's add a box plot to check that. Go to insert. So we can see the two outliers here. There's one up here. That's for that 800 and something. And there's also one down here. These are outliers. So if you're interested in removing it, you can easily now remove it. Data exploration is simply the first thing you do before you continue your analysis, so that you don't get wrong results from your analysis. And visualization can help you easily with your data exploration, especially if you're not good with statistics. So we'll move from there. We'll look at how to communicate insights and monitor data in real time. This is where your reports come into play. This is where your dashboard comes into play. So we are going to be building an interactive dashboard to report this data.
Excuse, can I ask a question?
Okay, yeah, someone has a question. Go on.
Okay, from the box plot that you had just drawn there, I can see that there is a very large distance from the first quartile to the second quartile, which is the mean. And then there's also the distance from the mean, which is the Q2, to Q3, which is the third quartile. What does that imply in a data set?
Can you come again?
Okay, from the box plot that you have just drawn there, can you go back to it, please?
I deleted, let me bring it back.
Okay. Yes, this one. So, in statistical terms, we see the first line that the first line, which is Q1. I can see there is
Yeah.
a large distance from the Q1 to Q2, which is our mean. But then the distance now becomes shorter from the Q2 to Q3.
Yeah.
So, like, what does that imply when you find such a situation in a data set? How, what does it imply in most cases?
Okay. Distance from Q1 to, okay. It simply means here in your data set, there are extreme points. So you should be focusing more on your mean for your analysis.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is because now in this case, when we are doing now, like, which of the, what do you call them? The central means of tendencies. Am I
Yes.
going to use the median or the mean if I want to eliminate the outliers in this case?
In this kind of case, we should be I think we should be looking at the mean, not the median. You should make use of the mean. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
It simply means there are a lot of variability in your data sets. So let's continue. So now I want to look at how to build an interactive dashboard. So most charts in Excel, like the one we have up here, these charts are static. They are not interactive. These charts are static. So there's a feature in Excel known as pivot table that helps you build interactive visuals. They will control your charts. And a pivot table is simply an Excel table that helps you summarize large data sets. You can also manipulate your data, arrange the rows and columns in different ways to suit your analysis. We call these scatter plots. Pivot table, and finally we'll have our dashboard. So to insert a pivot table in Excel, first you check that there are no missing rows inside your data set. So if you go to insert, click anywhere inside the range. If it's a table, also click anywhere inside the table. Go to insert and click on pivot table. So you can add pivot table depending on the version of Excel you are using. There are different places you can add the pivot table from. Here we are interested in a range. This is a range. So we are going to select from table or range. Now, why I said you should check if there are no missing rows, you can see the green line highlighting the entire range. If there's a missing row, it's going to stop at where a blank row is going to stop at where that blank is. So you want to check for all of these things before you add your pivot table, just to ensure that you are capturing the entire data set. Just to be sure, we'll scroll down and see if our entire range is being highlighted. Yes, it is highlighted.
Hi,
And
Eric. Before
Eric,
you continue, so there are like two questions concerning the previous thing you did. So Bankole is asking, she's putting out a thought that she said, I thought that in case where there are outliers, it is recommended to use the median since the mean is sensitive to outliers. While John is asking, how do I insert the box plot? So I didn't want a situation whereby you now have to go back
Got it.
after a very long. Do I
Okay.
have to come in? Okay.
Okay, let's start with inserting the box plots.
All right.
You just select the column you're interested in. Go to insert statistic chart and you see your box plots. Okay, so the second question, let me read it out. I thought that in a case where there are outliers, it is recommended to use the median since the mean is sensitive to outliers. Yes, it is recommended you use the median, but my intention was actually to get rid of when I was studying out, I got rid of the outlier. So pardon me for that. That's an error from my part. So when you have high IQRs like this, it implies that there are more variability or spread in the central tendency. So you should go with the median. But where your spread is very small, they are closer together, then you should go with the mean. Thank you for bringing my attention back to that. Okay. Now let's go back to the pivot table. Go to Insert and click on Pivot Table. Can you see the dialog box that just popped up? Confirm if you can see a dialog box. I think this happens when I don't share entire screen.
Okay, you stopped sharing.
Yes, I want to share my entire screen.
Oh, all right.
Is it up?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So now when you go to Insert and you pick a pivot table, this dialog box comes up. You have the option of sending it to a new worksheet or placing it on an existing worksheet. So I'm going to place it on this worksheet here. I'll click on existing worksheet. Send it to this worksheet. I'll place it somewhere here. And okay. This is what an empty pivot table looks like. So you'll see the pivot field comes up. Here you can select your columns and rows. You can arrange them anyhow you want to arrange them. So by default, categorical data will always go to the row, while quantitative data will always go to the value section. Now, if I click on sales rep and quantity sold, if I just click quantity sold, it goes to value section directly. What we've been able to do here now, there are four different sales rep. The pivot table will automatically sum their sales from here. So instead of using functions and formulas to calculate all of these things, a pivot table can summarize this for you easily. And then you can go ahead and visualize it using a pivot chart. So after inserting your pivot table, You want to go ahead, let's format this a little to make it readable. And then insert your pivot chart. So when selecting charts, there are a lot of things you should consider. Does the chart you are about selecting, does it effectively communicate the message you want? If anybody making use of this visual, a quick glance at it, can they tell the difference between different data points? These are things you want to look out for. So a situation where you have data points that are very, very close, say like 10, 11, 12, 13, you don't put it in a pie chart because it will be difficult for anybody looking at it to tell which segment will be larger. So in that kind of situation, you want to use a bar chart or a column chart. Or for another good example is this, you have categorical data. You don't use line chart for categorical data. You only use line chart when you have a trend, you want to monitor a trend, you are working with date or time. That's the best time to make use of a line chart or an area chart. So for this, we will be making use of a column chart. And okay, this. I'm going to hide all of this. And then you add your label. So another good practice is this: whatever you feel it's not needed, you feel it's going to be make your chart noisy, get rid of it. I'm going to add a data label. This is too much for me, so I'm just going to add a data label on each of these columns so I can get rid of this axis. So I'll just click on this and delete. Now I add my data label. If you're not using data label, ensure you keep that axis so that whoever is looking can tell can have an idea what value this is. So turn on the data label. And we have this. Anybody looking at this can easily tell that Frank, just from the size of the column, you can tell that Frank had the highest sales. Adding the data label takes it a step further to give you the actual figure. Now let's compare this to using a pie chart. Okay, from a quick glance, if I haven't added this, from a quick glance, it becomes...
Hello, Mr. Fred. Mr. Eric.
Yes.
Please, Bankole says he or she is not following from the pivot table. I think she's lost.
Okay. Now let's go back a little. So to add a pivot table, I said a pivot table is simply an Excel table. It's a feature in Excel that helps you summarize larger tables into smaller ones. And it also helps you, it gives you the flexibility of remodeling your table. You arrange it to suit the kind of analysis you want to do. So to insert your pivot table, first of all, ensure that there are no missing rows inside your table or your range. If I should remove this and then click inside the range, go to insert, and I want to add my pivot chart or pivot table rather. Now see, because of this missing row, this blank row, it's only going to highlight this segment, leaving out some important data points. So you want to check your data first to ensure that there are no missing rows. Now I will insert the pivot table. Click on pivot table. So when you click on insert pivot table, this dialog box comes up. You have the option of sending it to a new worksheet or to an existing worksheet. I already have a worksheet I created here that will be holding all our pivot tables. So I want to send it to that particular worksheet. So click on existing worksheets. It will ask you for the location. Click on the arrow right there and then place it somewhere. Enter and OK. Can you see my screen? Please share your screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it. I think the person is probably having issues with network.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how to insert the pivot table. Now, after inserting your pivot table, you are going to see the pivot field here. These pivot fields are simply the columns inside that your data set. We have the date, we have the location, we have sales rep, temperature, and quantity sold. So you can decide to check one variable against the other, depending on the question you are trying to answer. Now we are looking at the total quantity sold by each of the sales rep. Okay, so what we'll do, let me empty this, get rid of this and this, and we'll have our blank pivot table. So you check sales rep and quantity sold. And it summarizes, it adds the total quantity each person sold for you. So instead of using long functions and formula to calculate that, the pivot table has done just a few clicks, you've done it with your pivot table. You can take it a step further to design this. I'll remove. And then make it readable, add a comma separator. Now we have our pivot table. So from here, we can add a pivot chart to this table. If you go to insert, among the chart options, you'll see pivot charts. Select pivot charts and then select the perfect chart that suits that visualization. We'll go with the column chart. You can also use a bar chart for this and it will work just fine, but I'll just go with column charts and OK. So a quick glance, anybody looking at this now, even without the figure showing, will know that Frank has the highest. Frank sold the highest quantity, while this other guy, John, follows closely behind, before Miaye and finally Dan. Now compare this to using a visual like the pie chart or a line chart. I used pie chart earlier. Let me use the line chart now. Go to insert. Use the line chart. This right here is a wrong visual. It gives you a false impression of a trend. This isn't supposed to be a trend. We're actually supposed to be comparing quantity sold for each of the sales rep, but here there's no comparison. It's giving us that first impression of a trend. So a good practice is to know the kind of chart, the kind of visual that suits the question you want to answer. For this one, the column chart works just fine. So let's design this a little. I'll remove the legend here. I don't want the grid lines. It's not going to look fine on my dashboard, so I'll get rid of it. Then hide the field buttons. So I'm going to turn on the data label. You see the plus icon here. Click on it. Turn on data label. Sorry, not data table, data label. And we have that. So there are sometimes you see some charts. Sorry. You see some charts. There are too many information on a chart. That kind of distracts your user from the main point of the chart. We already have the data label here. So I don't see any use for this again. We can get rid of this. Anybody looking at this chart will know what this chart is trying to say. You can also see the actual figures from this. All that's left is to add a title to this. And we have our first chart. Don't worry, we are going to design it on the dashboard. Next, we might be interested in checking the trend, the daily sales trend. You want to see what days you have your peak sales and the days with the least sales. You might be interested in checking what events happened on those particular days that caused that surge in sale or decrease in sale. So to do this, we'll still use the pivot charts. We insert a pivot table. Same process, existing worksheets. Place it here. Okay, just to make this look better, I'm going to separate each of the analysis from the other. So on this one, we are interested in the dates and quantity sold. So when we add the line chart, we'll be making use of the line chart because now we are interested in trend. So we'll be making use of the line chart to see how this flows from one date to another, rather. So we'll go to insert and use a pivot chart. Now you can go with your line charts. So when using pivot tables, there are some limitations that come with pivot table in terms of design, in terms of calculations. There are some things you might want to add that you cannot add directly to a pivot table. There's a workaround for this. Just going to delete this. I'll say equal to this, my pivot table, highlights the entire thing.
Sorry once again, Mr. Eric, please, someone is asking, where do you find the variable dates?
Where do I find the
Variable dates.
where do you find the variable dates? Look at the date in our here's the column for date. So if you are inserting it to the pivot table, you also see it here. Check under your pivot field, you see the dates. So now as I reference this pivot table out here, you can see the date format has changed. So we'll just format this back to date. Use Ctrl+1 and we'll make this, I need the date in this format. Perfect. So here we can insert, instead of using a pivot chart, we can use a regular line chart. Now, the main essence of using a pivot chart is so that this chart can become, the main essence of using a pivot table when visualizing is so that your chart can be interactive. Now, see what happens with a pivot table. You can add slicers to filter down data, to look at data at different levels. Let's quickly add a slicer and see how that works. You can add a slicer to this, go to pivot table analyze, insert slicer. I'm going to filter this now by location. We'll look at the sales trend for each location. Click on location and OK. Now, see what happens. As I'm using the slicer to filter down, you can see it's responding to, it's filtering out. Now we are currently on location B. So it has filtered out everything concerning location A. That's the advantage of using a pivot table. Now, as I reference this table to get this one here, I reference the pivot table to get this one here. Whatever happens inside this pivot table also reflects here. So now all those customizations I cannot do on the pivot table, I cannot do them here, and it will still be very interactive. Like the date here, you can see how the date is displayed on the chart. This is there's a lot of space for this. If you should add a long date here, it becomes too bulky to read, too many information on it. That's why I referenced this. Okay, something else I might also want to do, to add a data label. Let's add data label. Now, because there are too many data points, this is going to distract the reader. Too many information on this chart. So I can just say, let's look at only the largest number and the smallest number. Every other one we can overlook for now. Or maybe I also add an average line for it. So I'll turn this off, and we'll see how we can manipulate this. For now, just get rid of this so we'll have space. We'll say add 1, 2, and then call this. We want to see the largest number on this column. So you say equal to large. Equal to large. It's going to ask you for the array. Every function you're using in Excel has a syntax. Look just under here. You see after large, it's asking for the array. Now we're interested in this column. We want to see the largest number from this column. So I'm going to highlight this entire column, comma. The K here is asking what number do you want to see? Is it the first largest, the second largest? I'm interested in the first. That's why I put 1 here. So highlight this, close the bracket, and enter. It shows us the highest number. Now let's see the lowest number. We'll see equal to small. We highlight the entire array. And the smallest number also. We have it as 421. Something we can do instead of using this cell reference, we can name this cell to use it in our formula. Just stay with me. I'll call this no, let's just go to formula. There should be somewhere to name. Okay, click outside. Okay, now you can define the name. Let's call this large one. Okay, so you see the name has also changed. Check the name box here. You see the name of this cell has changed, large one. We'll click this. We'll also define the name. We'll call it small one. So if I only want to add my data label for the largest number and the smallest number, I've been able to get the largest number here and the smallest number. I'm going to add a new column. We'll call this data label. I believe you've already covered functions and formulas. So this shouldn't be that strange to you. Now we'll use if function. We'll say if this cell is equal to large one. Remember, we already named this cell here large one. So if we are saying if the value inside this cell is the same as the value for large one, comma, it should return the value inside here. Or if the value inside this cell is equal to small, it should return the value inside here. Sorry, a comma, it should return the value inside here. Else, we want it to remain empty. Close your brackets. We have two open brackets, so close the two and enter. Now, because this is not the largest value, it's going to return empty. Let's drag this down for the entire range. See what happens. Okay, just two places. We have, this is the largest value and this is the smallest value. Now we can use this column now as our data label. All of these manipulations, you cannot do it with your normal pivot table. That's why I had to reference this outside. Now, to add this to your data label, click on the charts, go to data label. Instead of just checking the data label, you click on the arrow here, more options. Now you can select value from a different cell to use as your data label. Uncheck this value here. Uncheck the value here and check value from cell. So if you check value from cell, it's going to ask you which cell do you want to use for your data label. what we'll do is to highlight this entire range. And okay. And now you can see only the highest and lowest values will be displayed. So it depends on you. If you want to add more than one value, you can go ahead and customize it to your taste. I think something else that can help our chart here is we can add markers to this. Click on the line. You should see markers. Okay, you see marker here. Click on the marker option. Use built-in marker. Oh, this is only bringing out for one spot. I want it for every other spot, not just one. So click on this and just turn on the marker. There are different marker types. You can select anyone that you want. You can also play with the colors. We'll do colors. We'll play with colors when we get to the main dashboard. I think that's about it. And we also have our markers here. Now, if you should add your slicer to this pivot table now, if you should add your slicer, insert slicer, use location. See what happens. When you click on A, it's going to pick the highest and the lowest for A alone for you. So whoever is looking at your dashboard already have an idea the day with the highest sales and the day with the lowest sale. Can also use colors to play with this. High healthy can go with green, and danger goes with red. You can add all of this to your dashboard. Okay, what else can we add to this? 45 minutes left. Okay, so from here now, let's look at how to design a simple dashboard design. It's one of the things you can do with visualization to monitor data in real time. A dashboard does this perfectly. So when designing your dashboard, there are some things you should also have in mind, like who and who will be making use of this dashboard. You know, not all users have the same level of data literacy. There are some persons you need to explain down to the smallest thing. So in those cases, you want to add text, a lot of text to your visuals. There was an argument I saw online once. Is it good to add write-ups to your charts, or you should let your visual speak for itself? My answer to that is it depends on who is making use of that dashboard or who is looking at that visualization. If it's somebody that has a good data interpretation knowledge, fine, just the visual is okay for them. But if it's a non-technical person, somebody that you need to explain for, then a little guidance, adding text will go a long way. So far, do we have any question? It's very fast. Okay. Now we have a limited time to work with. That's why I'm kind of. There is no date column in the data you have from Bankole.
I already saved, but I was not able to plot the line to put the minimum and the maximum on my line plots.
Okay. Joy, the class is being recorded, right?
Sure, it's been recorded.
Okay, so you go through the recording after now.
Yeah.
So let's start building our dashboard. The first thing I'm going to do is I don't want a situation where you have to scroll down, up and down when looking at the dashboard. You know, Excel has over 1,000,000 rows. You can scroll to avoid this vertical scrolling on your dashboard. I want to avoid that kind of situation. So I'm going to hide from this row down, Control Shift. After highlighting this entire row, use Control Shift down arrow, right click and hide. So this way it's not going to scroll down. You are limited to just what you can see here. I'll do the same for the columns. Control Shift right arrow. Sorry. And hide. So we have just this interface now to work with. This is going to contain everything we want to do. So also have in mind, you should have an idea of the platform where your dashboard will be visualized. Is it going to be on a mobile phone? Is it going to be on a large screen or just your laptop? These are also factors you take into consideration. It would also guide your design. So back to this. Now we can get rid of the grid lines. Go to view, turn off grid lines. And we have a canvas. This is exactly what you see in Power BI. Canvas. You can also turn off headings just to have more space. Now let's start designing the dashboard. When it comes to dashboard design, you can work with your own, just flow with your design, or you can go online, search for a template and try to recreate the template. If your client has a color palette existing, you can use that color so you don't make use of random colors for them. So for this, I did a very simple design just before the class. I want us to recreate. It's a very basic one, very simple one based on the data we have. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is to add our nav bar. So go to Insert, pick a shape. I'm going with the rectangle. Then you draw your shape. Make sure this covers everywhere. Okay, perfect. Now play around with the color. For this shape, I will go with this dark color. And that. Then for my background, I want to go with something on this look too dark. Okay, this works well. Not that bright, something a little dull. Then we can also add our copy these charts. And place them on your dashboard. Okay, so observe with me. This slicer is only controlling this chart. Please, let's get rid of these numbers, this line, get rid of this axis. Now, this slicer is only controlling this particular chart. It's not controlling this one. So if you want your slicer to control different charts on your dashboard, right click on the slicer, you see report connections. Click on report connection, and you see the other pivot table. There is a pivot table attached to this. So whatever happens with that pivot table controls what's happening on this chart. So I'm just going to connect this and OK. And this is also interactive. I'm going to position this somewhere here. To bring it down just a little. So you can also add background to your charts. Just for the no, thank you. You can also add background to your charts just to add that feel good effect. Please always prioritize the information on your chart. That's more important than the design. Design, yes, it's very nice to have a beautiful dashboard design, but that's not the ultimate thing. The main thing should be how to communicate your data effectively. Design is secondary. So now let's just for that, let's add a couple of background to this. Go to insert, bring out one of the shapes. You know, a good dashboard should have metrics as well as the charts. So change this to a lighter one. Turn off the outline. Add another one to hold the line chart. Bring this down. Just here. Or send this to the back. Just let me shut it up. Shut it up. Thank you. Just to make this look nice, we'll do a couple of things. So we have a color scheme. We are using a white and black design. If you add too many colors, it becomes, your dashboard becomes too rowdy. Yes, it will be beautiful aesthetically, it will be beautiful, no doubt. If you can make your dashboard beautiful, no problem with that. But I like to stick with basic colors. And also take note, there might be people with color issues making use of your dashboard. You want to factor in all of this. So whoever is making use of this dashboard, if I'm using color to relay an information, would they be able to see the color? You don't overlook all of those things. So here, turn off the background for these charts. Go to format, shape fill, no fill. Shape outline, no outline. If it were to be in Power BI, I would just copy the formatting and add to this chart. But here in Excel, you have to do it manually. So just copy this, Control C, V. And send it to the back. Send to back. So for this, we'll change the color to rhyme with the color scheme we are making use of instead of this blue. Control 1 will bring out this, and we'll go to colors, solid fill, change the color, can go with something like this. Okay. Well, please don't pick offense with my color selection. It's just very basic, black and white. For the line, we also do the same with the line. And for the markers, to make the markers stand out, I want to use a darker line. Okay. 30 more minutes. So the last thing we'll be doing, we are going to be adding metrics. This is still turned on. No fill. Okay, the last thing I'm going to be doing will be to add just two metrics. We'll look at the average temperature, the daily average temperature, and we'll also look at the total quantity sold. And as you're adding this metric, we want, as we are clicking on the filter, you should also control that. Bring in a text box. Text box just here. Call this quantity sold. Increase the font size a little. 16, say, no, that's too much. Let's go with 14. Quantity sold. Now for this, I also turn off the background. Shape fill, no fill. Shape outline, no outline. Now we've gotten the first metric. Duplicate this. We'll call this average temperature. I think that's exactly what we have on these charts. Okay. Now I'm just going to copy this symbol here because I'll be making use of it. The degree Celsius. Put it somewhere here. I'll make use of it later on. Now we have our quantity sold. To bring in the metric itself, we also want to make this metric interactive. Come back to where we have our pivot table. I'll turn on the grand total. I'll turn on grand total. Now, instead of referencing this directly, I'm just going to bring it out here, equal to this. And we have this here. Add a new text box. You can copy and paste the existing one, or you add a new one. This text box, I want it to be around 28 font size, make it bold. Instead of typing that figure here directly, see what I'm going to do. I'll go to the formula bar. I'll reference that cell that I just created. Say equal to, no, from the formula bar, you say equal to. We are not typing directly into the text box. We are using the formula bar. We say equal to, we'll go back to this sheet, and now we'll reference this cell. And we have that figure inside here. All that's left is for us to format this or push it to the left. Bring it down and increase the font size. I think 24 should be okay. We can also make it bold. All that's left is for us to turn off shape fill, no fill, outline, no outline. Fill is still on. And we have this here. See the advantage of doing it this way. As you click on this, it becomes interactive. So if you have different metrics, you want to make your metrics in Excel, you want to make it interactive. This is an easy workaround for all of this. In Power BI and Tableau, they are already a default setting in it. So you don't have to struggle for all of that. But in Excel, you just have to find your way around it. We'll see how one more thing we'll add, the average temperature. So I'll add a new I'll add a new text box. Go to insert, bring out the text box again. Repeat the same process. But first, let's calculate the average temperature. We've not gotten the average temperature. Let's go back to this. I think we can delete these charts. We already have them over there, so we can get rid of them here. So we'll have enough space to work with. There is no column for our temperature. So we are going to add a new column for temperature. You can copy and paste an existing pivot table. Instead of going through the entire process of adding a new pivot table, just copy this and paste. And then bring out, uncheck all of these ones and bring out just temperature. This is showing us the total. We want it as rows so that we can calculate the average. So here, to calculate the average, you say equal to average. We highlight the entire table. And you have the average. So here, we can now reference this average to give us our average. Sorry, go to the formula bar. say equal, come back to pivot table and pick out the average. And we have the average here. I don't want it, it's not looking nice this way. It should be just 2 decimal places and it should have this degree Celsius symbol beside it. So how are we going to add that? I'm just going to copy this. Now come back to somewhere here. We can use text join, or let's try text join equal to text join. Will this work? Or concat should be plus this. Uh-oh. No, let's use concat. Concat this, comma. We still have to format this to 2 decimal places. Let's just check the formula used here earlier. Okay, text, not text join, and then this was formatted. Okay. So not concat, please. Say equal to text. We'll bring in this value, and then we'll format it to reduce the number of decimal places. Go with the comma. Zero 0.00. And then I think that's it. Let's check this again. Okay, outside, not inside. My bad. So this is a string, so you add double quotes. I think that works. I just need this symbol now. That's the only thing left. Copy this symbol. If you can easily find this symbol, There's no need to go through all that stress. Okay, so we have it here. This is the way I want it. Now we can reference it to our dashboard. So instead of this, we'll get rid of this. We'll say equal to. Now we'll go back to this and bring it here. Increase the font size. Make it bold. Also turn off the background and turn off the outline. So one more thing we should add to our dashboard is a title. We're going to add a title to the dashboard. You can call it it's an ice cream sales data. So let's just go with ice cream sales analysis. So the only thing we've not done is to design our slider, which might take us a lot of time. But you can also design your slider to match with the color scheme you have in your dashboard. You can also add a line, you can also insert a timeline. Use a date and OK. This comes in handy when you want to look at data from a particular period. So here it's just a 1 month data. If you should go to another month, it will be empty. So it's just 1 month. This is not needed in our chart because it's a 1 month data. But if you have different months, you can always look at it on different levels. That's how you add a timeline. I think there's still a little time. There's still a little time for us to touch on the slider design before you ask your questions. I know you have a lot of questions to ask. So to design your slider, go to slider. When you say ensure the slider is selected, go to slider, and you see different designs, but you want to make a custom design. So you go to new slider. I'll just design the whole slider and we'll stop in 3 minutes. We'll stop. So format, click on format. For the font, we'll go with a light font because we're using a dark background. So we'll go with a light font. Size, let's use 14. Border, do we need border? The color should be dark. So the fill also for our slider. Let's use a dark fill. Okay, this and okay. Now we've added a new design. So to select this design for your slider, just click on it and select this, the new design we just added, slider style 1. If you select it, you have something like this. I have not done much on this. You can design for
Yeah, apologies for that. I think he's having issues with his network. It'll be back shortly. I'll just touch like via DM. I'm so sorry for that.
My apologies, everyone. My network went off and I was unaware. Please tell me where you lost me. I've done a couple of things. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. After you edited the slides, sir. Hello, sir. After you edited the slides, sir. That
Okay.
was where...
Okay. Thank you. That means it wasn't too long ago. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So after editing the slider, you'll see. Okay. After creating that format for our slider, it's still not we've not applied it to the slider itself. So what we'll just do, click on the slider and select this new design you added. The design we've done here is very basic, very basic. You can still do a lot more on this dashboard. And it's fully interactive. So we are going to stop here and we'll still have about 9 minutes. Joe will pardon us to take a little more time for your questions. If you have questions, you can start dropping them now.
Yeah, sure, no worries at all. I'd like to first of all say a big thank you to Eric for this opportunity. Um, yes, I'd like to say a big thank you to Eric for this opportunity. I mean, you really like the fact that everyone was engaging. You really carried everybody along. And yeah, although some people were like they didn't get this, but I'm sure it's if they go back to the video, they would all get that. So I'd like to say thank you very much. So yes, if anybody has a question, please kindly drop it in the chat box so we can take it. And so Suzanne can help us read them out. So yeah, so Suzanne can help read that out. And if not, we can just tell our can we like I'm not seeing anything in the chat box. Can we just type thank you in the chat box? I can see reactions and all of that, which is very good. But yes, for as many of us that can unmute our mics to say thank you or can actually type in the chat box, please do say thank you. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Eric. God bless you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Eric.
God bless you. Thank you very much.
Because the amazing thing about this is it's not like we're going to give Mr. Eric
Thank
money.
you
I
so
wish I mean
much.
when TechUp Africa goes, we would definitely bless Mr. Eric with $1,000 and more safe. So thank you very much, Mr. Eric. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
don't think they have questions. Anybody have questions?
Okay, there's a question here. From Evelyn. She's asking, when dealing with missing data, when do you know
All right.
to replace it with either median or mean? Or do you have to drop it because it's a missing data? Hi, Mr. Eric, please, did you get me?
Yes, I got you. Okay, so handling missing data, it's quite tricky. If you have access to the original data source and you can get that data as much as possible, get it and replace it. But then using the mean, most cases, it depends on the kind of model you are trying to build. Like we checked earlier, if you check and there are too many outliers in your data sets, please go with the median, right? Otherwise, it should be the main. You can replace it with the main. But if you know that getting rid of that particular line of data is not going to alter your data, you can remove it. If it's just one column out of say 20,000 rows, you can get rid of it.
All right, so thank you so much. Is there any other question? Please, any other question?
please. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, sir, for the class. It's really a blessing, sir. So I wanted to ask, before you began building the dashboard, there was a way you were able to keep the page within a particular border interval. So I don't know how were you able to achieve that. I couldn't really get that part, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Eric. So I see that we do not have any more questions. So that brings us to
Someone
the
asked
end.
a question.
Okay,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
My mic was muted. So do that. You just, for the last question, how to hide other part of the listing you don't want. Just right click on your heading. Ensure your heading is turned on. Right click and you can hide. Once you right click, you'll see hide. If you hide, it takes away that part of any part you don't need.
All right, so thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Thank you everyone for being a part of the class, and thank you, Joy, for having me. I would love to connect with as many persons as possible, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn and we can always share ideas together. Eric Batambari on LinkedIn.
All right. So thank you very much. Thank you so much, Eric. I will share your profile with everybody on the group chat so they can follow you on LinkedIn.